When we talk about, and I know we can't get into specifics of the Supreme Court, but I've noticed that people have said one of the criticisms of the book is the fact that if you read the book looking to see how you will judge on things, how you will decide, that's not really in the book. To me, I see it a very different way, and I could be way off the mark. Understanding who you are and how you come to be who you are, I think helps understand how decisions are made, at least the process of it. Not necessarily where you land on them, but how you look at things.
You have just, actually, that's the most sophisticated observation a journalist has made.
Well, thank you.
I'm grateful for you saying that, because you see, I think the public thinks, and there was a lot of conversation about this during my confirmation process, that my personal feelings will drive my decision making in terms of the outcome. And what I try to explain, and you've just done it so much more elegantly than I did, is no, what it affects is the process, not the final answer. Because the final answer is driven by things that are not part of my life experiences. The law. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got a law Congress wrote. I have principles of statutory interpretation. I have constitutional law. I have over 200 and odd years of precedents I have to follow. I can't drive a decision based on my personal feelings. But you're right, in that process of deciding, it can certainly guide me in making sure that I'm hearing and understanding the viewpoints of everybody who's in front of me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to knock you off your pedestal then for a moment and say, pages weren't the only thing you dropped during an audition. Sideways?
That is man, what a legend that is. You know, okay, I'm in Texas. They send me the script, and there's always a cover sheet. And it's, you know, Alexander Payne is requested to see you for the role of Jack, blah, 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 blah. Down, there's another paragraph, you will be required to cry in this scene. And then down a little bit, there's like, by the way, this scene is in the nude. And I'm like, and I took it literally. Like, okay. So I go, and I warned him. It was Alexander, a guy running the video camera, and then there was a casting assistant who was going to read with me, and John Jackson, the casting director. And we got to that scene, and I said, you know, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm going to take my clothes off. And I don't think they thought I was going, you know, I was going full Monty. I don't think they thought I was going to start freeballing right in front of everybody.
You recreate scenes that very few people would know what happened in that room and what was going on. Mm-hmm. You also attribute thoughts to people, what they're thinking, what they're feeling in these moments. And going through both these books, I believe you 100%. I don't question it. How do you get that knowledge?
John Hamm and I have been political reporters for a long time. So for the most part, not 100%, but we're dealing with people we've known for a long time. They trust us. We respect their time. They respect our professionalism. And we did 500 interviews for the book. We want to tell the stories just the way you described it. What are people thinking? What are they feeling? How are they interacting in these private rooms under great pressure? Only way to do that is to spend a lot of time with people, to explain the project to them. And people want to tell their stories. That's a human instinct. But this is the most emotional, important professional thing they've ever done in almost every case. They want the story to be right. And we're meticulous about getting the story right. And people agree to participate on that level.
How do you know you have it right?
By talking to everybody, by getting, whenever possible, contemporaneous notes, audio and video recordings, and by being experienced reporters and knowing when people's memories maybe aren't as good on purpose or by accident, and when something doesn't feel right. We know it doesn't feel right. We generally get two reactions to the books which really hearten us. One is from people who don't care about politics and say, you know, I'm not really interested in politics, but these books are just, they read like a novel. They're just great stories about interesting people. We love them. But then from political junkies and from insiders, people who work on the campaigns, who almost to a person will say to us, you know, that scene felt the way you wrote it, exactly the way it felt in the room.
A song that some people probably know, I Am Woman.
Oh, of course.
A little song. I early on was not aware you had written it.
Oh,
I
okay.
thought because in those day and age, most people sang songs that somebody else wrote. It was, you were a singer, writers wrote songs, but this song came from you.
Oh, yeah. but I didn't have the courage to write the melody. So I had somebody else do that.
But the words, I've heard different stories of how the words came to you. One that I
Oh,
hope
yeah.
is the real one is laying in bed,
Yes.
you kept hearing this.
Yes, over and over. I am strong, I am invincible, I am woman.
What do you
Over
attribute
and
it
over
to?
again. I guess heaven, you know, it just, it came to me and it wouldn't leave me. And I thought, well, has to be a song. And so at that point I had to turn it into a song, but it was simply a phrase that's what started it.
Could you ever have imagined what it became?
No. Oh, no.
There was an expression I hope we got on tape.
Yeah, because, I mean, in those days, first of all, I mean, that it was so hard. It was so hard. You know, so many radio stations would say, well, we're already playing a female record, and things like that. So it was tough, but like I said, I'm very determined.
Yeah, because as I understand it also, initial release, okay, people hear it, fine. And then it comes out again, and there's a push more, and the song just starts to build.
Well,
and,
we re-recorded it.
yeah, and then it doesn't stop.
It's become an iconic song.
Ever regret it? Because it's become so iconic. Does it overshadow everything else? Because you have so, I mean, people forget how many hit songs you had, how many other
I
things.
forget how many.
Yeah, and yet this song becomes so big. Is it ever too much to have on your back?
No, it's, I'm proud of it.
Menendez happens before Simpson.
Yes. I
And
was
that
not on
seems
it.
to be the
Yeah.
one that gets so much media attention. And I'm thinking, now that that precedent is set, hearing that you're going to be involved with OJ, do you even think about all of that, that circus is going to follow?
No. And here's why. To me, I didn't really know who he was. I didn't know what sport he played. This is so embarrassing to admit. When people hear about this, you are kidding me. I'm really not kidding you.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I thought, oh, he'd been in a Hertz commercial. You know, I kind of remembered that. But as far as I was concerned, he was really kind of off the radar screen. He had been a big football player. Whatever he was.
I'm going to take you back to that going to New York. Broadway, end of the 70s, early 80s. A lot different than the Broadway we have today, which almost feels like a Disney theme park at times. For the people that weren't there, didn't experience, didn't see it, explain what Broadway felt like in those days.
Well, I'm going to write a book about it someday.
Are you?
Oh, yeah, I am. But the 80s and the 90s on Broadway, well, first of all, I was working with the man who was at the peak of his career. I mean, there was nothing that Tommy Tune touched in the period of time that I worked with him that wasn't golden.
You were there, Grand Hotel 9.
I was there
My
from
One and
Best Little
Only.
Whorehouse in Texas through Grand Hotel. I did all the shows in between. And so I was there during that period of time for him and for Broadway, you know, before the mega musical.
Is it truly still your passion? Does it excite you to work in the minutia of government?
I am excited to go to work every day. Now, I have to say that as a council member, I really was down in the weeds a lot, and I worked on ordinances and this word and that word. I'm still excited about it, and I could still do it, but as mayor, I have people.
Yeah.
You know, I have people now who
You
do
do, yeah.
that, and I'm higher up in the food chain, and I'm mostly I'm kind of a referee or traffic cop. You know, I'm sending things out. You go work on this, bring it back. You go work on that instead of doing it myself.
Right.
But I love it.
Do you miss the weeds?
No, I like what I do. I mean, I enjoyed being down in the weeds, and I can do that. But this is a very different position and a different job. In order to be a big city mayor, you must love your city.
Yeah.
I mean, just feel it, love it, know it. First of all, you couldn't be elected. Second, you wouldn't be able to put in the number of hours that it takes, because I'm never off the clock when I'm out in public. And my peers, I think, feel the same way. And you know, it's the ultimate Forrest Gump experience. You know, there's a new box. It's not just a new chocolate; it's a new box of chocolates every day. Something new is happening. Cities never stop. They don't stop working, but they don't stop changing. And so it keeps me at the top of my game all the time.
over your body of work, do you think the right pieces were recognized and the right ones were less received? Or from where you sit, did we get it wrong as an audience?
Well, I think I've had a lot of success. And there are times when I think a work, God, that didn't get seen enough. Then sometimes I'll bring it back and it hits. Sometimes I'll bring it back and still nothing happened. I have to live with that. What I do love is when someone says, you know, there was that piece you made, and then they'll name some, and people were doing this. And that movement they were doing, I thought was like so uninteresting, but they remembered that.
Yeah.
That is really encouraging. Or D-Man in the Waters, which is one of our companies, I think a great work that people really love. We were doing it in Germany or someplace, and there's this movement like this. I call it a fishtail. The work has a lot of water imagery. And we were doing it in Germany, and after leaving the theater, coming out of my dressing room, getting in a cab, out in front of it were groups of little kids who'd been at the performance, running down the street and doing this. That, yes, yes, you know. They didn't need to explain it. They just grabbed it. It became a part of them. That is really when art really feels good.
So you were turned down for an Irish Spring commercial because you didn't sound Irish enough.
Yes, I know. Isn't that crazy? Back in the day when I first moved to New York, I got an agent, and he sent me out for an Irish Spring soap commercial, and I thought, oh yeah, I've got this one. I've got this one. And I was in the waiting room with these, you know, gorgeous girls, but they were, you know, American girls. And I went in and I had to read the copy, and as I recall, the copy was simply, somebody said, you know, Irish Spring soap, and the guy says, manly, yeah, you know, manly, yes, and I had to say, and I like it too.
Right.
But it was a great campaign, and the guy kept saying to me, could you sound a bit more Irish? And, you know, and I think what he meant, could I sound a little bit more Hollywood Irish, you know, and anyway, or a little bit more leprechaun. I wasn't quite sure what it was he wanted, but I got back home certain that, you know, it was just a matter of figuring out when I would shoot it and where. And my agent said, "No, are you sitting down? You know, you didn't get this, so you didn't get this role." So it was their loss.
What point did you realize your upbringing wasn't the same as everybody else's? When did that realization hit you that there's something different going on here?
You know, I was very young. I mean, I was in the single digits, well before 10. And I knew that. I understood it because of the children I saw at school. They seemed less burdened than I. They seemed less serious. They seemed less frightened, less tentative. They seemed more socialized, more of a group, whereas I felt isolated. My parents' relationship was dynamically aggressive, you know, combative, and you know, images that I saw on television, you know, TV shows, I did not recognize. I did not see myself or my family in what I saw. And then later, when my mother gave me away, essentially, to her psychiatrist, I was raised in an even odder household.
When you do collaborate, though, when you're creating the story, when you're putting this, and I was saying creating the story seems wrong, too, from what I've read of how you go about this process, because it's ideas of characters studies come up, scenes come up, moments come up, and it kind of evolves into the plot, correct?
Well, it depends. Most of these movies I've done, it would probably be an exaggeration to say they have a plot, any one of them. This new one, I think, does. Yeah. I mean, this one actually has, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens, and it's all connected.
When do you first hear the term disco being tossed around?
Well, definitely, like, you know, it would have to be when did Saturday Night Fever come out, like 78, something like that, right? You know, middle of, you know, the late 70s.
And I bring that up because you get termed disco music.
Correct.
Yet you'd been doing this music before there was even that term.
Correct.
And that what becomes disco is a little different from what you're doing. Like you said, it's more R&B, dance, pop.
Well, no, well, yeah, from what I was doing, yeah. But, you know, it was our beat that, you know, the beat, and I mean, we did the first disco mix of a record ever for Rock Your Baby. And all we did was took the instrumental and made it 6 minutes long instead of 3. That was the first disco record.